This is Brenna Fender, and I'm here with Sandy Rogers, who is a world champion and four-time national champion in dog agility, and also she created Feet First, which is a two DVD set about using your feet to set lines and cue turns. Hi, Sandy.
Hi, Brenna. How are you this morning?
Good. Thank you for being with us today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for the opportunity.
I just finished watching the video and I loved it.
Thank you.
I felt like in the first, I don't know, 5 minutes when you were showing yourself, I like that you're not afraid to show your own errors as well as your successes. But you're showing your own self, and I was like, oh my gosh, I do that. Oh my gosh. And what really surprised me was that I realized that most of the time I have no idea what my feet are doing on the course. Like, I have no idea.
Right.
What inspired you to figure out to like look at footwork and start making a system of footwork?
Someone else inspired me.
Mm-hmm.
A good friend noticed that I was lacking some coordination skills. I'd never been an athletic person, and she encouraged me to get some help.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even really think I needed help, but I met a fellow who put me through, Topher Stewart, who put me through some football style footwork drills, and I was stunned at how uncoordinated I was, Brenna, and I knew I needed help, and I thought, how am I even pursuing this sport with this enormous piece of the puzzle not working for me?
Right. How long did it take you to kind of go from start to really being able to implement the footwork in a trial?
Well, that's the exciting part. Tiny bits of practice was making huge differences. That's why I was encouraged to keep going. And I would say that the benefit was within a couple of weeks, honestly.
Wow. And how much were you practicing at it? I mean, were you doing fitness stuff like every day, for hours?
No, I like to say that I'm that committed. But really, I was meeting with him once a week for the footwork stuff. But because it was an hour once a week, and then it was quite natural while I was handling my dogs, like you just said, to start thinking about my feet. The emphasis had never been there.
Right.
So he put the emphasis in. It was quite easy to implement.
That's awesome. Yeah, because when you look at it, you think, oh my gosh, I can never, it will never get, but that doesn't sound like a huge commitment to see results.
Yeah, usually when I teach a workshop, I get a whole bunch of folks say, oh my gosh, this feels like dancing, and I hate dancing. But willing the feet is important. We got to know how to will them to do what we want them to do.
Do you consider it the footwork like its own handling system, or do you use it within other handling systems?
No, I don't consider it a handling system. And in the video, I try very hard to say this is the footwork that I have chosen to use with my dogs. The point I really want to make is that whatever turn cue you're giving, there is footwork for that. Your instructor may not be thinking about the footwork, or they may be putting a huge emphasis on it. But the point is, when you're learning a turn cue, it's important to say, what is the footwork? What is the correct footwork for this cue? And learn that.
Right. So it works with any handling system. Any handling system.
Sure, it's about balance and coordination and fluidity of movement to give better cues to the dog. It doesn't have to be my footwork. It can be any system's footwork.
Do you think that the dogs need to learn the cues? I mean, like, do you have to train your dog to follow these footwork cues, or are they pretty natural?
It depends. Line setting is more natural for the dog. I don't think you have to train line setting, but I certainly am reinforcing my dogs as I'm perfecting my footwork cues. The front press in particular, I like to pay the dog for driving up to my leg, but that's more to keep his head in the game and more for speed. It isn't like when my foot does that, you do this necessarily. I think with some of the more sophisticated turn cues, that could certainly be the case. But most of it's quite natural.
That's nice.
Yeah.
I noticed in the video, it didn't look like it took a lot of space to work on this kind of thing. What if you don't have like much room in your yard or
You
whatever?
don't need space. The drills can be done in small spaces. In fact, my other video, one jump, two jump, is just 2 jumps, and honestly, you could do this in a 30 by 30 space less, 20 by 20, I'm sure.
And one of the things that it seems like I've heard forever in agility is that your little dogs are looking at your feet, but your big dogs are looking at other parts of your body. Have you noticed that to be true? Do all dogs respond to the footwork?
I think all dogs are responding to whatever cue they get first.
Okay.
They're just desperate to know what's coming next. So if your arms are in action or your mouth is in action, and that's why I called it feet first, because I think that the dogs can get the most from the feet. So if you're executing and cleaning up your footwork and letting your mouth and your arms be second to that, that's going to benefit the most dogs. I'm not looking at training the dog to look up or to look down. I think they can scan our whole bodies easily, and I think they're just desperate for any information, and they're going to feed off what comes first.
Makes good sense. What about if you're, I noticed again in the video, you guys are working very close to the dogs. Some of us don't run very much and are far, far from our dogs, half the ring away. Does footwork matter under those circumstances?
Well, I think line setting becomes more critical the further you are away, whether you're working lateral distance or driving the head forward. You're setting lines constantly, whether they're the lines you want or not. So when you're doing distance handling, you're still in a lane and the dog is in a lane. And learning to respect infringing on that lane or increasing that lane and the movement that it's going to create the dog to do is critical. And that's line setting, and it has to be done with your feet. There's a point when you're behind the dog where your feet aren't going to be influencing as much. That point is critical for you to know with your dog. I mean, different breeds can handle cues from behind more than other breeds and what obstacle they're heading toward. Basically, if I'm behind my dog, I'm also using verbals. But the line setting, at some point your dog is passing you. Before he passes you, you've set a line. And training and the breeds will determine whether the dog is comfortable staying in the lane that you set, whether you're 10 feet off, 20 feet off, or next to the dog. Does that make sense,
Yes.
Brenda? Does that answer the question?
Yes, I think
Good.
so. I think so.
Good.
One thing I've noticed is that I'm not successful when I'm directly behind my dog anyway. Regardless, like there has to be some degree of lateral distance to it, because when I'm straight behind, I'm in trouble.
Well, teaching the dog to drive ahead of you, and that's where I think one of the trickier parts of this game is knowing where training versus handling comes into play.
Right.
It's combination. We have to be good trainers and we have to be good handlers.
But most of what's on the DVD is training yourself,
Yeah.
and not training your dog, which is, and it didn't look too painful, I have to say.
Good. What you're saying about the video is exciting for me because you're getting exactly the point that I wanted to make. With a little bit of time and effort, we work so hard to get better at agility. We spend so much time and so much money, and we've come at it from train the dog to do this better, train the dog to do that better. And I'm just really excited to shift the focus onto the handler and really take a look at, okay, what's my end of the bargain here with this little dog I'm running? What's my end of the deal, and how much responsibility do I have to make things clear? And I think I think this is simple. I think it's attainable, and I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it when I went outside to try just a little bit and realized that I just have not paid attention to anything that my legs and feet are, except for the path of that I had been paying attention to. But otherwise, I don't know what my feet do on a front cross. Not really, I'm sure it's not consistent. So that was really an eye-opener.
To me, the front cross is a foot cue. It's a 3-step of a foot cue.
Right.
And when it's over, it sets the line for the dog. So I think it's critical to have consistent footwork, especially on the front cross. And what I'm hoping is that when folks watch a DVD and go out there and mess around with it a little bit, and they go, oh my gosh, this feels hard. I want that to be embraced as,
and I need it.
Right.
Because it's not gonna. The harder it feels and the more awkward it feels, the more you need it. And I promise it won't take a lot of effort. You know, hit it a couple of times a day and get that 3-step front cross done, both directions, until it becomes easy, and it won't take long.
Yeah, one thing that I noticed was the way you showed that your footwork influenced the dropping of a bar in one of your runs. Because I that's a huge problem for a lot of us, myself included, bars coming down, and sometimes I don't know why, and as soon as I watched that, I was like, well, maybe I do know why, at least some of the time. So that was very interesting. So not only are we talking about directing your dog better on course, but some of the actual mechanics can be influenced by poor footwork.
Oh, sure. It's all meant for the dogs. It's all meant to make life in the end easier for the dog.
Well, thank you so much for your time today, Sandy. I really appreciate it. And I'm going to point it out again. You can find it on cleanrun.com. And it's feet first, using your feet, set lines, and cue turns. Thank you very much, Sandy. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Brenna. Have a great day.
Thanks.